welcome to another episode of Some of Our Parts, the podcast where two friends talk about the movies that add up to make us who we are. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Jim. So, Lindsay, what did you pick for us this week?
Well, it is football season once again. So I picked a football movie. My last pick was like football adjacent, right? Ace Ventura with a little bit of football. So now we're going full into the world of football, and also learning about how football can solve racism with Remember the Titans from the year
Oh,
2000.
a classic. So, can you tell our listeners why high school football, particularly, is a favorite of yours?
Yes. My dad has been a high school football coach at this point for like 45 years, which is longer than I have been alive. So it's just been like high school football has sort of been a way of life since I was really little. Like I have memories of being a little kid on Friday night at games, you know, playing around in the bleachers, going down on the field. I will not say that I was as passionate or as knowledgeable as the little girl in this movie, but I did have ambitions to be like her when I was a kid. But so yes, high school football is just like life for me and my family. So high school football definitely very meaningful. And a lot of these movies, all the football movies I've watched like with my dad. So my dad and I, this is definitely one we saw in theaters when it came out, owned it at home, watched it over and over again. I know many lines from it by heart.
So, does your dad, when he watches movies like these, because he's a football coach, does he ever pick apart the movies, like about, how realistically they portray the coaches or how, the athletes and so on?
No, I
Okay.
don't think so. I think he just like my dad just like likes movies. So I
Hmm.
think he just gets into it like that. I think he enjoys the overall like vibe, right? The getting hyped and inspirational speeches and like that kind of stuff. Like I
Hmm.
think that is what he can appreciate. He doesn't really pick apart like the technicalities or anything like that. You know, sometimes like it could be like, oh, you wear shorts like that, Dad? Like, no. Because Denzel Washington does wear like the classic like
Co-
old
coach's
coaching shorts
shorts. That's what we used to
in
call
this
them, coach's
movie.
shorts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think my dad may have worn like earlier in his coaching career, but not these days.
Not these days.
No, no.
So,
But
so, and
yeah.
then I was going to ask you as I watched the movie, I was wondering, I wonder if it was Lindsay, like, coach's daughter, were you able to motivate the team or pick out some things that, Dad, they're not doing this or they're not doing that. So,
I wish I could say that I knew enough to do that. I did not. I was certainly not like Coach Boone's daughter who was like, I don't care. I wasn't there. I was like somewhere in between them. I like leaned a little bit more probably Cheryl Yost. Like I always felt like protective of my dad, especially when like parents were of players were doing stuff. Like when the dad they take out Ryan Gosling and the dad starts yelling and she's like yelling back at that dad. Like that energy more so. Not as much of the like offering feedback on plays and like getting on players and stuff like that. No, I
or
I did
pick,
fill up water for them though when she was like filling up water. I would do that. I would
did
do
you
that.
really?
Yeah, especially like when my dad got his first head coaching job, I was 8. So I was like really I was also like big into the water boy. So I was like I'm going to be the Bobby Boucher of this team. So yeah, no, I definitely like wanted to be a part of it though.
Okay.
Not as much as her.
So this movie, I would say, I would guess then it has more than just, other than the fact that it's a good movie, then has more meaning to you because of your background.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. For
Cool.
sure.
So so I'll let you, take the lead as and let us and lead us down to the path of how the movie runs and stuff, if that's okay.
Yeah, well, we'll start just by saying it is based on a true story.
Ooh, okay.
So it takes place at T.C. Williams High School in Alexandria, Virginia. This is the 1971 season when. So in the movie, it's portrayed as the school like integrating for the first time, which I thought was strange because I was like, I know that obviously like places lag on integration, even though Brown versus the Board of Education, that decision came down in 1954. But I did look it up, and it wasn't that PC Williams was formed by like like multiple high schools merged. It wasn't just that it was like integrating for the first time. It was
Oh,
the schools had some level of integration, not a lot
mm-hmm.
necessarily. Like the real Coach Yost said that the school that he was at, which was Hammond, which is as shown in the movie, it only had like 3 or 4 Black people at the school. So like it was
Okay.
technically integrated, but like, it was still very not diverse. So it was multiple schools like merging to be TC Williams. And I guess that's what people are saying was the primary source of tension.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily like on the football team, it was not necessarily a racial thing, but well, I want to play, right? Like
Right.
3 teams are combining into one, and we
Mm-hmm.
all want that starting spot. So although the screenwriter, who's a black guy, was like, well, yeah, but also no one is gonna say, well, yeah, I hated I was actually racist against the black guys on the team, right? So of course, so that is the story. But
Right.
the screenwriter Gregory Allen Howard is like, well, yeah, but
Yeah.
I think it's not out of the realm of possibility that
Correct.
these were issues. So some of it, there is a lot of like poetic license here. Some of the people are real, like Coach Boone, Coach Yost. Some of that tension was real because Coach Boone did get like kind of usurp his like head coach role.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Bertier, Julius Campbell, PD, Rev, Louis Lastic. A lot of these people are real. Some of the players are not. Um, Sunshine, he's real.
Mm-hmm.
Ronnie Bass. But yeah, so I say that just to preface this because I had some questions like now watching it as an adult that I'm like, this is weird, but it's because there is some dramatic license being
Oh,
used.
okay.
So T.C. Williams was actually integrated in 1959. So the
Oh.
issue in 1971 was really these schools combining. And certainly, again, the schools had different levels of racial diversity.
Mm-hmm.
So there is tension with that. But it seems like a lot of the tension was just because, we got to take 3 football teams and make them one.
Make them one, and we don't have enough. There's not going to be enough room for three squads of guys to
Right,
be on the
right.
team. So
All 3 quarterbacks cannot be the starting quarterback.
right,
So
yeah.
what's going to happen
Or
here?
we only
So
need two, and we don't need three.
right, right, right. So that was an issue. So the movie opens with people arriving to a funeral. It's narrated by Cheryl Yost, who is the daughter of Coach Yost, who's the white coach. Um, the real Cheryl Yost in real life, Coach Yost had 4 daughters who all live with their mom, and I think he was at first like, well, how are you only going to put Cheryl? But I guess the other daughters agreed to it.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but Cheryl died in 1996 of heart failure at like age 35 or
Oh
something.
gosh, I did not know that. That's
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah.
Oh.
But so we see her in this movie mostly as a little kid. She's at the beginning when we see the funeral, she's there as an adult because that's sort of flash forward into the future. But we don't really know much about what's going on at that funeral
Right.
until later. And then kind of zooming back to 1971 when the film primarily takes place. Again, we're in Alexandria, Virginia, which is a little bit interesting because they talk about Alexandria, Virginia as if it's like the deep South, which like to me, we live in Maryland, and to me, Alexandria is a DC suburb. So I
Mm-hmm.
think of Alexandria the way I think of DC, which is not like there are parts of Virginia that I would think of as like South.
Oh, because
And
yeah, I lived and worked in Richmond, and Richmond was, the
yeah,
deep South.
right,
So
the capital of the Confederacy. But it's hard for me to
correct.
think of like Alexandria that
Mm-hmm.
way.
I agree.
Like I think of Alexandria as where like people live when they work in DC, but they don't want to like live in DC, right? Like
Yeah, more like a suburb.
yeah, yeah. So, but it's interesting to hear that. I thought like all these people have like these accents, and I was like, I never heard anybody from Alexandria talking like this, but the tensions are high from the beginning because in the community, I don't know if this really happened either, but in the movie, the a white store owner had killed a black teenager like the
Mm,
summer before, leading up
hmm.
to this first football season. And so there's, tension in the town, like black people are protesting, white people are like, stop rioting. And, you know, um, we meet first Coach Yost. He's teaching at Hammond, or he's coaching at Hammond High School, which is a primarily white high school. They hear the white football players hear that like somebody broke a window at a store, and they're gonna go defend the store from
Hmm.
these mobs of black people. And Coach Yost is like, "No, you're not." He heads them off in his truck and is like, "Get in the truck."
Get in the truck.
And when he's gonna sort of read them the riot act, uh, he finds Coach Boone, Denzel Washington, waiting in his office. Because at this point, he's supposed to be the assistant coach at this new integrated high school, TC Williams. And tensions are high immediately. They're like, the white players were like being racist. They see him and they're like, I don't care.
Hmm.
Coach Yost is like, I want to be clear, I didn't hire you. And they're all like, well, why aren't you out there protesting with your buddies? And he's like, well, I had an appointment to be here, and so I'm here. And he's like, I don't care. I'm trying to coach football. I'm
Right.
here to coach football, period. So, anyways, things are not going well. The vibe is not good. Coach Boone and his family move into a neighborhood, and you hear like we're watching it from the perspective of like the neighbors looking through their blinds, going like, what are they doing here? As soon as one comes, there's gonna be more. Are they the movers?
That's what the line that got me. Were they are they the movers? And it's like, wait
Yes,
a minute, there's three little girls out there,
right.
or
These
whatever.
little black girls are in fact movers.
Exactly. Yeah, because that's how child labor works. Is if you have a job, your kids have a job. So
Right. And they
even
were
if
all also dressed really nice.
I know that I was going to say the girls had on little dresses and stuff, and and looked very nice. That was the other thing though. I thought like they looked awful clean and stuff for like now I know the kids weren't helping move, but like Coach Boone was lifting and carrying boxes and stuff, and I'm thinking, damn, he looks pretty good, for because I'd be like sweating up a storm, or worn out. So
Yeah, they were pretty sharp for moving day for sure.
yeah,
Um, but then uh we learn that the board, I guess the school board, decides, you know what, actually, we're gonna make Coach Boone the head coach because we gotta like throw a bone to the black folk. Is essentially how they it's kind of how they explain it.
I know, I know, I know. I was gonna say
Um,
you
so
said it, not me, but you're right.
that's
That's
but
exactly
that's
what.
like what they're telling them because there's a
Yeah,
white guy from the board explaining that to Coach Yost, and there's a black guy from the board explaining that
Coach Boone.
to Coach Boone. And Coach
Hmm.
Boone is like, well, no. He's like, I've been passed over before, and I'm not going to do that to somebody else.
Right.
But
Yeah.
everybody, all the black community of Alexandria is really psyched to have a black head coach. They
Because they're
have
all
all
outside his door.
shown up on his lawn to clap for him and
Hmm.
talk about like you're our coach, and this
Hmm.
is my son Julius, he's great, he'll be the best outside linebacker in the state if you make him. So then he's like, well, I guess I gotta do it. And so Coach Boone goes to meet with Coach Yost because he's like, okay, you know here we are,
Right.
I would like for you to be my assistant head coach and run the defense, which Coach Yost is not super into. His daughter is also very mad. She tries to shut the door on Coach Boone when he arrives. Coach Yost says his primary concern is his boys, which I have to say, Denzel Washington's lines and line delivery in this movie, I love so much. He's like so funny. Because when he's like, I'm worried about my boys, he was like, I ain't gonna cook them and eat them. So Yost doesn't want to work under him. He announces to the white families that he coached for that he's taking a year off and then he's going to go work at like Loudoun High School in Loudoun County. And they're all like, no, we're not going to play. We're going to boycott. We're boycotting TC Williams. We have a petition. And he's like, but like, if you're trying to like go play football in college, you have to play. So like, you
Right.
don't do that. You all can't be going to other schools just to play football. So like, don't do this on account of me. Meanwhile, the black players are good to go. They have gathered in the gym. They're ready to get started. This part is also very funny. When Coach Boone comes in, everybody's laughing and joking, especially Peden, who's played by Donald Faison, who you may recognize from previous Pick Clueless or from Scrubs. He's laughing, joking, having fun. And Coach Boone is like, well, he has his hand up. And he comes in, he's like, why is your hand up? Put your hand down. He's like, why are you smiling? He's like, because it's fun. Fun, sir. The football's not fun anymore. They have the whole back and forth.
Yeah.
No, zero fun, sir.
It sort of reminded me of a drill sergeant and a recruit. It was almost like a Full Metal Jacket, where, why is that grin on your face? So,
yeah, because he's like also right up in his face doing it.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Zero fun, sir. So, Boone is kind of laying down. He also has his assistant coach, Coach Hines, who is the offensive line coach. He's sort of laying down the law of like, this is how it's going to go. We are here to win. Like, we're trying to play football. We're going to go to camp in Gettysburg soon. If you survive camp, you're on the team. Also, we are leaving at 7:29. If you were there at 7:30, goodbye. You are not playing football this year. I just love this whole part. You're going to wear like a jacket and tie. If you don't have one, ask your father for one. If you don't have a father, find the town drunk and trade him.
Well, because he said every town drunk looks better than any one of you all. And right now he goes, because you're all raggedy looking. So,
yeah.
So I have a question here for you.
Yes.
Our high school did not have a high school football camp for the football team. Did your dad have football camps where they went away to?
At some of them.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah, I remember there were some of them that I think they would go.
Okay, I was just curious.
West Coast.
Because that seems to make like I went to high school in a small town in West Virginia, and during this time period, but we our football team didn't go away to camp before the season began to train, so they
yeah. Sometimes they would.
Okay.
Some years. I remember when I was a kid that they did at times. And I think they went to also Pennsylvania. I don't know what it is.
Well, I guess probably they probably went to a college, didn't they?
They went to West Coaster, yeah.
Yeah. So I was just curious. So okay.
But yeah, sometimes they did. So and of course at this moment we meet Louis Lastic, who is a white guy who runs in and he's like, oh, hey, I'm here to play football. And all the black people are looking at him like, what are you doing here? But he's just like, cool. He's like, whatever. And then all the other white people come in. Coach Yost and all the other white guys come in. It's very hostile. The vibe is not good.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was going to be a riot or a street fight or.
Right. It feels very I don't know, race war, Jets and Sharks.
Exactly. That's what I thought. Yeah.
If only they came in snapping.
Well, that or just do the dance off like Michael Jackson.
In Bad.
Bad. So.
And yeah, Coach Boone is not happy. He does confront Yost about this. He's like, no, I'm trying to have a meeting and you can't just be rolling in like this in the middle of when I'm talking to the team. You're undermining me. But, we're all going to be a team, I guess. And then it's time to go to camp. Everybody shows up in their finery. Everybody's looking good. It appears everyone's on time. Also, all their families are there to see them off as if they're going to war.
All right. So that was going to be my next question was, did you, you probably weren't there when they left for camp and stuff, but I was going to say, was that a thing though, where the families come? Because it was it's like they were leaving for boot camp or something.
Right. I imagine they would just
it's football camp. They
Right.
just
They just
drop them off, and
go
then
to
you know,
school. Yeah, drop them off at school and they get on the bus.
yeah. So what the
Like,
hell?
I mean, some people like can't drive, right? Some people, but like all those guys were like seniors. They could drive. Why is
Yeah,
Gary Bertier's mom there? We know he could drive.
I know. Yeah, because he has a
Yeah.
car.
Right. So it's like, I
I
don't
just,
know. But yeah,
I,
as far as my understanding, again, I was a kid, so I didn't go, but like, I think, yeah, people just met at school and would just get on the bus.
right. So okay, just curious. So
Gary Bertier comes up to Coach Boone to let him know, uh, we would like the offense and special teams to be 50-50. We don't need any of your people on defense. We're good.
uh
And Coach Boone says, oh, my people. What did you say your name was? Gary. You must have said Jerry.
huh.
You're Jerry Lewis. And then he has his friend Ray next to him. He said, and that must make you Dean Martin. And he's like fully embarrassing them in front of everyone because he announces to all the crowd of parents that this is Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. Jerry Lewis tells the joke. Dean Martin sings the songs and gets the girls.
It's the girl.
And then he also makes him call him his daddy. He said, who
Ooh,
is
I
your
know.
daddy?
Yeah.
Who's daddy, Gary? You need to answer my question. And then he said, is this your team or is this your daddy's team? And then Gary's like, it's yours. Okay. Then I'm going to be deciding who's playing. He makes everybody, there were two buses and they'd gotten on them like all the black people on one bus, all the white people on the other bus. And he was like, no, 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 no. You got to get off, divide into offense and defense. And then he paired them up. So there's a black person and a white person. He was like, you have to sit with this person on the bus and you are going to room with them when we get there. So you better get friendly. So of course it's incredibly tense. Like there's a moment that Blue, who's one of the black guys, starts trying to sing on the bus, and Julius, another one of the black guys, played by Wood Harris, is like, "Shut up."
It just shuts him down. Just
Yeah, and then Gary's like, "Thank you for telling him to shut up," and he's like, "You could shut up too."
yeah, Julius seems to be an equal opportunity person. He doesn't like anybody. So
Yes, yes, agreed. And he was like, and I think it was one of those things like, I could tell Blue to shut up, but I don't want to hear you, this white guy, talking about it. No, no, no.
exactly.
This
Yeah.
is an
Yeah.
intra-community thing,
Yeah.
and you can mind your business.
To me, again, it goes back to Animal House. You can't do that to our pledges. Only we can do that to our pledges.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I will also say just here, because the movie takes place in 1971, excellent soundtrack.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This
We
is
just
my
get
era. Yeah.
great,
I,
great
I
songs.
live and breathe this stuff. So
Yeah.
I still listen to this. The '60s and the '70s. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's good stuff. We get Ain't a Mountain High Enough. We get the na 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 hey,
mm-hmm.
hey goodbye. Like just
Some
lots of
Bob.
really good.
We get some Bob Dylan. We get some
Yes. Um
uh,
what's I've
Creedence
Seen Fire and I've
Clearwater.
Seen Rain. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I feel like can I just say every movie where there's a scene in the 70s has Creedence Clearwater Revival. Anything that's like 70s, like Vietnam War, there's always like a CCR song.
Well, CCR covered like most of the stuff back in. Like, yeah, Vietnam. It's like favorite son. You got to play that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and
Or that like that long cool woman in a black dress
mm-hmm.
song, like that
The
and like
Hollies.
CCR. I feel like you hear those like
Oh yeah.
it
It
just
just
it's a 70s montage like in
it,
my brain if you
well,
hear those
yeah, I
songs.
think classic, that, and then maybe a couple others, like not maybe from the '70s, Steppenwolf,
Mm-hmm.
Born to Be Wild and stuff,
Yeah.
maybe from the late '60s. But I agree with you, yeah, because I do like me some CCR. Mhm.
Like I feel like that just like takes you right
Mhm.
there. Like, okay, I know this movie's in the 70s. I don't need to know anything else.
Right,
I know we're in
exactly.
the 70s. Anyways, they get to camp, the tensions are still high. We're seeing everybody's like, setting up their rooms. It's just not going well. Julius is hanging up a poster of John Carlos given the 1968 Olympics like Black Power
Like
salute.
power salute.
Gary Bertier's like, I'm not looking at that for 2 weeks, and he said, then you better close your eyes. Or he said, you better use that X-ray vision and look through the wall, Superman. Then they start fighting. Then Ryan Gosling announces that there's a fight because also young Ryan Gosling is in this movie. This movie has truly like a million famous people in it. And then everybody's fighting, and then
it's a pretty sorry looking lot right after that.
yes, and Denzel is Coach Boone, not thrilled. I also love the lecture he gives them because he's like, he's basically like, we're going to be perfect in every aspect of the game. Mm-hmm. So if you drop a pass, you will run a mile. If you miss a tackle, you will run a mile. If you fumble the ball, I will break my foot off in your John Brown hind part, and then you will run a mile.
You'll run a mile.
It's, we're progressing through camp. Things are still tense. Although Louis, the big white guy, he sits down with the black folks. He's like cool with everybody. He's just a jolly guy.
I do like when they said, well, why don't you go sit there with your people? And he goes, I don't have any people. He goes, I'm new here. He goes, I don't have anybody. So
yeah, he's just like, what?
Yeah.
Apparently in real life, I was reading, Louis Lastic was not Coach Boone in like, I think in the DVD commentary says it, Lastic was not that big and not that funny.
Oh, really?
But he did hang out in like the Berg they talked about. So like he actually did like hang out with the black kids like before this. So like that part of it was like real. He was like that.
Okay.
But yeah, lots of tension. Like Gary's friend Ray is like, I'm not blocking. This black guy Rev is the quarterback. He's like, I'm not blocking for him, which is like, I think Gary doesn't necessarily take him seriously. He's like, okay, man, like, well, you have to block for him if you're like playing.
Right. Yeah.
And even with the coaches, like Coach Yost is like, oh, here I like have some trick plays for you, and Coach Boone is like, you can just worry about the defense.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Yeah.
He's got his like 6 plays with multiple options that he runs, so he's like, no, you got it. Boone is like, okay, we need to work on this, the tension. So he has Louis stand up and he's like, tell me about a black player on the team. You're a white guy, tell me about a black player. He starts talking about Blue, who's his roommate, saying he wears leopard spotted underwear. But the best part is Louis is like a military kid, so he says, he wears this leopard spotted underwear, sir. Like everything is delivered like that. But then he's like, tell me about somebody else that's not your roommate. He talks about Rev, and I think this is a good moment because you see Coach Boone is actually a little, not a total hard ass.
Right.
Because he, like Louis talks about Rev is so smart, he's going to go to college. Louis is like, oh, I'm not going to college, I'm an idiot. And Coach Boone is like, listen, if you don't go to college, it's not going to be because you're not like qualified to go to college. So every week, bring me like your grades. We'll go over things together. It's between us. So like they have a little agreement. They have a little aside. But then they talk about, he talks about Rev loving the Temptations, and they start singing the Temptations. But then this is now a project for everyone. You will every day talk to somebody of another race on the team until you have talked to everybody. And until that happens, we're doing 3-a-days. And like you have to actually talk to them and like learn information and share it.
So now you and I both know what that is, but you might want to explain to our listeners who don't know what 3-a-days are.
So that's when you have 3 practices in a day, which sucks.
Because 2-a-days used to be were bad, but
2-a-days were bad. Yeah, I hated 2-a-days in high school. So we would come like for 2-a-days, we would come and practice from like 8 to 11, and then we'd practice again from like 3 to 5 or something like that. So you have 2 practices in a day, and that's usually like in the summer leading up to the season, to school starting. Because obviously you can't necessarily do that.
Yeah.
School starts.
But
or like my dad would do them really early because it would be hot.
Oh, really?
You start at like 6.
Ooh.
You do like 6 to 8, and then you do an evening one. So you get longer in between, but you got to get up early, which for me is
and then you're running late, right? So you're like doing what from 5 to 7 or something like that, or
Yeah.
yeah. So, but 3 a days while you're at camp, that yeah.
Ooh. And like he doesn't run. He clearly, you can see the movie. These are not like walkthroughs.
Evidently.
You're being run to death. Um, but yeah, so that's like they have incentive to get to know each other. You can see clearly that some of these people do not want to. Like
Hmm.
the guy Ray is talking to Petey and he's like, "What's your father's name? You do have one of those, don't you? What does he do? He does have a job, doesn't he?" So he's
Hmm.
like plainly racist and a total a-hole. This guy Ray, who I think he's not a real person.
Oh, okay.
Thankfully, he was
Wait,
like,
maybe an amalgamation of a couple of
yes,
players.
yes, he's not like a specific, like that guy was not a specific person like in this actual group. I'm sure that there unfortunately are and were real people
Hmm.
like that.
Oh, I'm sure.
But he's just like a straight up like dick. But we get some funny moments. So like Ryan Gosling plays this guy named Alan. He's dancing Buck Owens country song
Oh
with this guy
God.
Blue, and he's like, "I know you like this, so I don't even have to ask, but like, you love this, right?" And Blue is like, "Do the words cruel and unusual punishment mean anything to you?" So it's rough. We get some more of Coach Boone being a hard ass. Like they're practicing, and Blue is like, "Man, you got to give us a water break," and he's like, "Oh, what?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I have to give you a water break. We're gonna do up down, which appear to be like they're kind of like burpees." Until Blue is no longer thirsty. And even Coach Yost is like, "Hey, maybe like chill."
Because he said there's a fine line between what was it between something and crazy or something
I
like
think he
that.
said like tough or something
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, and
Uh,
crazy.
and it's still tough. Um, I love this part. Julius and Gary get into it. We have a very good discussion because Gary feels that Julius is sort of playing selfishly.
Hmm.
And Julius is like, "Can you tell a single white person on this team to actually block for the quarterback Rev?
Right.
Why would I play for the team?" He said, "What team?" It's a good conversation. And Gary says he has a bad attitude. And then Julius, I always love this line. He says, "Attitude reflects leadership." Then um
Well, because Gary's the captain of the team,
yeah. Yes,
and
Gary's the
is
captain. And I think like, some of the things like Gary's not wrong about how Julius is playing, but like Julius is like, now why would I do that? Like,
right. All he cares about is at that just taking care of himself, and then if he can get some recognition or whatever for what he does on his own,
yeah,
then that's all he cares about. So
right. Because it's clearly like they're not playing as a team. So he's
no,
like,
I was
why
gonna
would I
say yeah.
try to
Hmm. Right.
be
Nope.
selfless in that way? And so Denzel is like, well, I have another idea of how to torture you into being nice to each other. And what that entails is waking up at 3 a.m.
Mm.
and going on a run. And we're going to stop at a cemetery and so we're going to have a discussion about the Battle of Gettysburg, and he's essentially saying like, right, people were fighting and dying over some of the same stuff that like you guys are fighting about currently,
Hmm.
and we kind of need to like get it together.
I
And
thought that was a very
Julian,
powerful moment because there was no indication that that's where he was having them go to, or that I thought the whole thing was just to wear their butts out, just
yeah,
running. But yeah, they ended up at the cemetery there, where I think it's like what 50,000 men died in one day at Gettysburg
yeah, it's like the deadliest battle of the
of the Civil War,
battle of
maybe of any
Antietam.
war.
Yeah, probably. So yeah, it's a powerful moment, and this is clearly like a turning point. Because like
Hmm.
we see, for example, Gary calls out his friend Ray for not blocking for Rev,
Hmm.
and then he and Julius kind of bond. It's a tentative at first, right? They start there like left side, and Julius is like, "What you?" You can tell he looks like, What do you hit me for?"
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then he's like, "Come on," like it's the sort of camaraderie, like hitting each other thing. And then they start getting into it, right? Like left side, strong side. I don't really know what that means.
I was going to ask you
No, I
because
will say too,
I didn't play football.
they talked about it also, the Kelsey brothers on their podcast, and they also were like, that doesn't really make any sense.
Oh, okay. So
So it made me feel better.
there we go. Okay, so we're not alone then.
Yeah,
So
so whatever that means. Then midway through camp, we get a ray of sunshine. The arrival of Ronnie Bass. His dad brings him to play, and the coaches are like, "Oh, well, like we have a quarterback already, but he could play at like these other schools." And the dad is like, "They won't integrate. Like they
yeah,
won't let black players and white players play together, and I'm not cool with that." The dad is a like colonel in the Navy or colonel in the
Marine Corps.
Marine Corps. Sorry,
Yeah, that's
they
okay.
just moved
Yeah,
from. I think Louis is a Navy kid. I think
yeah.
Louis said
Louis
he's
the
a Navy
Navy
kid.
kid. Yeah,
Um, they've just moved from California, and they're relocating there. So I assume he's going to work at like Quantico, and so he wants his son to play football, and he wants his son to play football somewhere where he can play with black and white people because Colonel Bass is cool. And they're all making fun of him, calling him like a fruitcake because he's got this long, long blonde hair.
really long hair. Yeah,
Yeah. Although I will pause here also to say that in my reading about the real story, they're like, no, like actually, like everybody had long hair like that at the time. Even like Gary Bertier. Yeah, they're like, it's the early 70s. Like all the guys, if you watch this movie, like he's the only one with long hair and everybody else has short hair. And like that was not
no,
real life.
no. We all had long hair. So
Yeah.
even in
Yeah.
high
And like
school.
literally these specifically, they're like Gary Bertier had long hair.
Yeah.
Like, so them making
So
fun of him for the long hair is like not real, but they're making fun of him because he's sort of like, he's got long hair. He's from California. He's kind of like beautiful. And then he like beans Gary Bertier with a ball from like, 100 yards away.
yeah, really 60. Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah, it hits him right in the back. So
Yeah. And then but they make him cut his hair. The coaches make him cut his hair. It's still like kind of long, but it's not
yeah, not
the long tresses that he had
yeah.
before. But this is when they start calling him. Petey starts calling him Sunshine. Sunshine.
Yeah.
Which is like what my brain does whenever I see somebody. Like if I'm like watching college football, someone takes their helmet off and they have long blonde hair. That's like I just want to go Sunshine.
And I think Petey kind of meant it as derogatory at first, but then Ray was like, "Yeah, I can dig that. I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll go
And
with
he's
that."
like, and Sunshine is another white guy who's just like cool with the black guys, and they're like taken aback at first, like what?
Yeah,
What
because
are you doing? Because that's like not the vibe in Virginia.
evidently.
Yeah, which we see a little bit more of a little bit later. But
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, then Blue starts with like yo mama joke. This is we see people start bonding. Then they all start singing "Ain't No Mountain High Enough." Like again, black and white players. Sunshine kisses Gary on the mouth, and he gets mad. And then like Julius is like, "What happened?" He's like, "He kissed me," and then that becomes like a huge joke. Everybody starts cracking up. Everybody's really having fun except for Ray because he's racist, and being racist makes you sad and mean.
Pretty
Can't have
much.
any
I
can't
would
have
I
any
would
fun if you're racist.
I would agree with that. I would go with that.
Yeah, like
So
he's like actively avoiding like fun because he's like, no, I'm not going to be nice to black people. How dare you?
really, yeah, you're just upsetting my world. So
Right. It's so silly.
and Louis does have a good mama joke though.
Oh my god. Yes, we gotta say that. So Louis is he's played by the actor Ethan Suplee, who has like lost a lot of weight recently, but like if you've seen him, like he's My Name is Earl, he was on Boy Meets World. He's a big dude. And he walks in holding his back and Petey's like, what's wrong? My back hurts from giving your mama a piggyback ride. She weighs twice as much as I do.
It was funny.
It was good. It was good. But everybody's kind of like locking in, right? This is one of my favorite parts when they're doing their little like, I'm agile, hostile. What is fatigue? Army clothes. What is pain? French bread. We won't smoke. We won't smoke. But yeah, they're all in. They're circling up. They're a team, right? They come together as a team.
Yeah, I wrote that the team bonds. They
Yeah,
finally, they come together, before they leave camp. So
yeah.
they're
But
ready.
and then they got to go back to the real world though. Like when they roll up on the buses, they're all singing together. Their parents are like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, and then they get into town, and it's like, oh yeah, this is reality.
Yeah. People protesting.
Yeah.
A lot of like white moms against busing and stuff outside the school, and like they're all trying to be nice to each other, and the the team is trying to be nice to each other, and like the people around them are like, "What are you doing?" Right? Gary has a girlfriend played by Kate Bosworth. Uh,
Oh, that was another one. Denise, my wife. I'm sorry, folks. My wife had to point out to me that was Kate Bosworth because I did not recognize her because she looked like she was 12 years old.
yeah, I feel like she still does. Like she's
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she's aged well, but I was just saying, I did not know who that was, and I know who Kate Bosworth is. So, but
yeah,
she was unrecognizable to me.
for
So,
sure. As I said, like a million people in this movie. Maybe that's why the budget was what it was. But he's like, "Oh, they all hate us, Gary, about the black people," and he's like,
mhm.
"No, I think it's just like a hard day, and we'll like get past it." He's like, "No, Gary, they hate us," and then like Julius comes to say hello and like tries to shake her hand, and she just like looks at him and is just like
Oh,
walks away, like
mhm.
so it's yeah. Um, and then also so the stakes are high, right, when they get back to school because things are not good. Stakes get higher because Coach Boone finds out you are on like the shortest leash possible. If you lose one game, a single game, they will fire you immediately and Coach Yost takes over. So he has like no room for error.
Yeah, it's like, he went from like being the assistant to the head coach, and then it was going to be, and then he comes back, and it's like, okay, yeah, but here's, now you can't lose a ball game.
Great.
Yeah.
Not a pressure. He's also like he doesn't have like control of that, right? He's not playing.
I know I mean, that's, that has, I mean, you could probably speak, volumes on that from your dad. I mean, how many times, I'm sure the players played a good game. They executed the game plan, but other times, sometimes the other team's just better.
Well, you're like, what are these kids eating? Because they're all ginormous, and this our team is teeny tiny, right? Like
Yeah. Although
they
there
didn't
were
hit
some good
growth
size,
spurt yet.
these guys are all pretty good size for a high school football team.
Yeah, I mean
Uh,
they're also all adults.
well, that's true too. But I was just going to say, because we had some fairly good sized guys, but nothing like this. I mean,
Yeah. My school there was like nobody that big, but yeah, I will say too before we start talking about the actual football in real life. So this is a movie, so we need tension. In real life, TC Williams in this season, they spoiler alert, they finished 13-0 when they win the state championship and they're number 2 in the nation. That was also true, but the games were not close. They were blowing people out.
oh, okay.
There was like one game that they won like 21-16, but like
And that was the closest game.
yes, primarily blowout,
So
including
that
in the playoffs.
so it wasn't even it didn't come down to like last minute or
Correct. I think that team that they play, that's not who they played in the state finals in real life, but that
oh
team is the team that they had the closest game against. So I think that's probably why they like fictionalize
yeah
it to make them the state final because it wouldn't be an exciting state final if we just like blow somebody out.
yeah
But I think they
41 to
won their state
nothing
final
or
like 20-0 or something like that.
oh yeah so
Like
well
the other team had like -5 yards of offense.
so evidently Coach Boone did do a good job.
Yes. Yes. A piece that was real from this
Mm-hmm.
when he's throwing up before the game.
Oh,
Apparently, he threw up before every game. And it's like, I like that part because I also am a person who, when I am very anxious, have been known to throw up. So, relatable content to me.
okay.
Love that. Mine is usually for dates, which is perhaps a worse time to be throwing up than sports games, but we all have our battles.
Everyone has their cross in life to bear.
Indeed. Indeed. So yeah, it's the first game. You can see the parents are still segregated. They're the white parents and black parents are sitting separately. I will also say in this movie, every other team that they're playing is the schools are still segregated. So they're playing all white schools.
I wonder if that was true.
Not true.
Not true.
But other schools were integrated.
Okay.
I think that there were schools that had just like a lesser, the amount of diversity varied, right?
Oh, okay.
But they were integrated. So yeah, that was not true either. But I think, that makes it a little bit more dramatic, right? That this is the only integrated school against all the other segregated schools.
So. Just a nod back, and I would, like I said, I was in school. I was in junior high in '71. So, and my small school in West Virginia, we only had a couple of students who were black. Oddly enough, the one guy was good enough to be on the football team. So he was an excellent running back. So, but and I don't think we played a lot of teams that had a lot of black athletes. Because we went to all the games. I didn't play, but we were supporters. So bad football joke, as my dad once said, if you can't be an athlete, be an athletic supporter. So
principal says that at the pep rally.
So anyway,
but yeah. So anyways, the game's not going great. At the beginning, Alan, who is Ryan Gosling, is playing. They say he's playing linebacker. He appears to be playing like safety or cornerback. Actually,
I thought he was playing safety.
Right, he's playing very deep, and he's on a receiver.
Right. Yeah.
But in any case, he's getting beat over and over. And PD, Donald Faison, is sucking on offense. The man cannot hold on to the ball. Boone is yelling at him and is in his face. Yost goes up to him and is like, hey, why don't you come play linebacker? I will say in air quotes. For me, I just need you to mark 23. He does it. He pulls out Alan. PD is doing really well on defense. Alan's dad is very upset in the stands, like, yo, how dare you pull out my son? It's amazing, blah, 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 which is like such a football parent thing to do. Every football parent thinks their child is Tom Brady, Emmitt Smith, Jerry Rice, like Ray Lewis.
Come on, give me a Joe Burrow. Come on, you got to give me a Joe Burrow.
Okay, Joe Burrow. I even said Tom Brady. I don't even like Tom Brady.
Oh, well, I don't know. I was going to say good quarterbacks. Come on now, you could come up with.
I was trying to go through different positions. Everybody thinks that their kid is like God's gift to football, and they're not. Sorry.
No, but so that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And you see Coach Yo's daughter like yelling back at him, like, he's getting beat the whole time. And like objectively, he was like getting beat the whole night. Of course he should come out.
And he even admitted it.
Yeah. He was like, I can't keep up with him.
Yeah. He said he was too fast for him. So
yeah. So and what's funny is up until that switch was made, they were again getting beat. And Boone was actually wondering if Coach Yost was like throwing the game. Like, is he letting them score on purpose? He says that to his assistant coach, Doc. And Doc's like, just like chill, like give him a minute.
Yeah.
And then once he makes the switch, PD is much more successful. Things are turning around, and they win.
Yay!
After the game, the players are hanging out, walking around like downtown. Ray and Gary's girlfriend Emma and some other white people pull up and try to get Gary to go with them, and he's like, "Oh, why don't you like hang out with us?" And they're like, oh. Emma's like, Gary, like, what are you doing? Basically, it's the vibe. Like, what are you thinking? What is funny to me during this is that those white people are playing the temptation, the way you do the things you do, like while being actively racist.
No.
Which I imagine was probably not uncommon at the time, but it is just like.
Yeah, I mean, because that was like, the soundtrack of our generation back then. So
It's just funny, like the cognitive dissonance. Like, okay, black people are good enough like to entertain you, but God forbid you
yeah.
like talk to one in
Mm-hmm.
real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you could, yeah, they could, they could perform, they could be in movies, they could be, musicians and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like, yeah, I can remember the attitudes of a lot of people back then. It was like, oh no, 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 you know,
I'm
don't.
not gonna talk to them.
Yeah,
They can
or
only through the radio.
you don't associate with them, or
Yeah.
whatever. So anyway,
You also see here's the other side of things. Sunshine, who again is like pretty progressive, I guess. I think he is someone who doesn't realize the extent to which racism is still a problem. Because he's like, let's go in this restaurant. And Petey's like, no, we can't, they don't like want to serve us there.
right,
And sometimes like, come on, like it'll be
yeah,
fine.
right,
And then it's not. They go in and the guy's like, no, if your friends want food, they can go around the back and get it from the kitchen. And also the like racist white people don't like Sunshine either because they all calling him a hippie,
yeah.
hippie boy, like
Well, I think to me it sort of seemed like, I guess from the one incident, some of the players thought he was gay,
yes,
and maybe maybe that, I don't know if that spread around town or whatever, because
mm-hmm.
was it Petey that like was telling the girls that, like, oh,
He's
he's
from
a
California.
thorn, yeah. Like,
He's from California.
yeah, like,
They're like, okay, yeah,
yeah,
he's a
because
California dreamboat.
yeah, because they're like ooh and all, because he's out there
Yeah,
doing Tai
he's
Chi or
doing Tai
whatever.
Chi in the schoolyard. But yeah, that part also made me laugh, especially because in when we talked about Clueless, it's Donald Faison who reveals to Cher that Kristen is gay. I'm like
I never thought about that.
Donald Faison has the best. Got the gaydar in
I
every
was getting ready to say,
every movie. Sunshine and Petey like on this night because Petey's sometimes like, oh, I didn't know, and Petey was like, well, I told you this was
yeah,
going to be a problem, and even Blue was like, Petey, like chill out, like he's not, he has like good intentions.
yeah.
So
He didn't mean to embarrass them. So
yeah, but that night kind of falls apart. But it was just interesting to see, you see there are white people that are being like actively racist, and someone like kind of who's like, no, like it's good, like we're all friends, but maybe not like fully grasping
hmm
the like reality of the situation.
what they had lived through and had experienced in their lives. But to me, a little bit of it maybe was a reflection of the times that the times were trying to change or starting to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, and obviously he was in California where things potentially like look different.
hmm
They're in Virginia, which is like
You're
whatever we say about Alexandria, like this is like the home of the Confederacy, right? Like
exactly, yeah, the bastion of the South. So
yeah, so it's like they're behind, and he's probably just like perhaps a little bit like foolishly optimistic about it.
well, I just recalled like the line his dad said when he said he wanted his son to play with black, because he said if they're good enough to die for their country, because this was still in the middle of Vietnam. Don't
Yeah,
forget too.
yeah,
He said then they're good enough to play football or whatever with. So it was
yeah,
like, he needs to see that
yeah,
they're good, if they're good enough to go out and fight for their country, then they're good enough to play football with and stuff.
yeah.
So
I also wonder if that time period was part of the hostility towards him being like a hippie too, because that's the
sure.
type of
Oh,
person that was like
oh yeah.
protesting against the Vietnam. You know what I mean? So I wonder if
Yeah.
like somebody in like the South is like, you hippie, they're like anti-war,
hmm
like that thing is also probably part of their hostility towards someone that looks like that.
Although his dad was a military,
Oh
member of
yeah,
the
and like
military.
people don't necessarily realize that like he's a Marine brat.
Yeah, exactly. That he's,
But yeah, but I think that I went that probably was part of it. There was some
oh, sure.
hostility to like the hippie thing too. Yeah, I think there's still issues.
hmm
Alan's dad confronts Yost about taking him out. He's like, my son, he's got a newspaper article about him, about how good he is. And he's like, I took him out because he like wasn't doing good. And Boone also confronts Yost about like coddling the black boys. Because Boone is like, I yell at everybody,
Yeah.
but you only come behind me for Petey. for
Mm-hmm.
red, for blue, whatever. You only come
Right.
behind me for the black players.
Yeah.
And they do not need to be coddled. Like the world does not do that. So like they don't need that from you. So
Good point. Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
it's interesting too, just to see like the different like perspectives and dynamics from everybody. Because I'm sure that like, Yost is like, oh, maybe he feels like he's like, I'm gonna be like less racist and be extra nice to like the black kids on the team or something.
Mm-hmm.
But Boone is like, you're like, maybe that's harming them, like,
Yeah. You're not. You're doing them more harm than good.
yeah,
As far as that, but yeah. And I thought when you say that, I just now thought about that. Yeah. I forgot about that aspect that he pointed out that he said he goes, I yell at everybody.
yeah. He's like, I yell at Gary,
Yeah.
I yell at Sunshine, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't come behind
Yeah.
me
Right. You
with
don't go
them.
pick them up or try to console them. So
Yeah, yeah. So
now
that part was interesting.
was
Uh,
your dad an equal opportunity yeller?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Yelled at
He yelled at
everybody.
everybody. Oh
Okay.
yeah, oh
That's
yeah, oh
well,
yeah.
good coaches should, right?
Yeah.
So
I also don't think of my dad much as a yeller. He's like a talk low.
oh
He wants
okay.
you to come. This is how I knew my dad was mad. Low voice. He used to have an underbite when I was a kid. He had jaw surgery to fix it. But like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I feel like when he's mad, it like
Oh,
comes back. And
comes
he
back.
says, "Come here to me." Those exact words. Come here to me. And that's when you know you're in trouble. Because he wants you to
Would
be
you ever
close.
pull the players by their face masks, like come in here or whatever? Because I've seen coaches do that, like on sidelines and stuff. I just wondered if your dad ever had that.
I don't know specifically. Like I feel like I've seen him like pull somebody back by their jersey if they were trying to like go somewhere, but not really
Oh, okay.
by
Pull
their
them by
face
their
mask
face mask.
necessarily.
So.
He would just,
Mm-hmm.
you need to come here. Like point and point to himself. Come here to me. So you are coming, right? And because I think of my dad more as like he's gonna talk low like in your face more than
Mm,
like yell at you.
yeah. Well, that's probably a
I mean,
better
he would
way to.
yell at like usually yelling is for like
Yeah.
you know.
But if he wanted to single you out, he wasn't going to do it in front of everybody. He would talk to you so only you could hear him.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes, and when he was mad at me, he would do the same. Come here
Oh,
to me.
ooh, ooh,
Yeah,
ooh. Oh, so you knew firsthand.
that's how you
So,
know. That's how you know.
okay. Okay.
Yes,
I've got it.
yes. Um, mm, Gary is getting. He wants to go play basketball in the Berg, which is like the black neighborhood with Julius, and his mother is not here. Is like no, and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, just get to know him, and she's like, I don't want to get to know him. Which again, it's just like there's just so much like resistance. It's like this is just another person. Just like talk to him. He's my friend. Like he's cool. We play football together,
Yeah.
mom. Like come on. And she's like, no.
Mm-hmm.
If your father was alive, blah 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 blah. It's like
I think at that point, that's when I realized that his dad wasn't alive. I think
yeah.
maybe up until then, or it didn't come out and make it very clear. But yeah, that's when, yeah, he's without a dad.
Because when his mom dropped him off for camp,
Oh yeah,
coach was like, "Show me your parents," and he said, "That's my mother." And then he
yeah,
then he started with and who's your
and
daddy?
who's your daddy?
But other things are, things. It's sort of like fits and starts, right? Like we see Boone and Yost are getting along better, right?
Hmm.
Like
Yeah, I think
they're working together.
they're appreciating each other's strengths and
Yes,
yeah,
and you can see like Tyrell, he's the other white coach that Yost brought with him. He's not happy about it.
no,
Um, at school, this is what Sunshine's doing Tai Chi, and Petey's all these white girls are looking at him like, oh, and Petey's like trying to suggest that he's gay to them. And then another white guy comes and he's like, don't talk to my girl. And he's like, Petey says, I don't see any livestock around here, so I don't know what you're talking about.
that was pretty funny.
But then he gets slammed into a locker, and then like
Oh,
all
then
these
we
white
got
guys start trying to beat him up, and then all these black guys start trying to beat them up, and then Gary and Julius have to break it all up.
break it up.
They're trying to again, the Titans football team solving racism one incident at a time.
That's it, brother. So just saying. Oh, sister. Sorry.
Even Cheryl, Coach Yo's daughter, is spending time at the Boone's house because they have daughters that are the same age, even though they have clearly like no interest in spending time together.
I kind of like that dynamic where they kept trying to, because one was a real tomboy and they had no interest in dress up or because they talk about each other how they dress funny and so on and so forth, and they're both completely opposite, but they are spending time together. So
like when earlier they had gone to Boone and his daughter had gone to Coach Yo's house.
Yeah.
Cheryl's shooting hoops and she passes the ball to Coach Boone's daughter, who just lets it pass her, and she's like, "I just did my nails." That was
Yeah.
when like Yost and Boone are bonding because Boone had like the math teacher like break down all of the opposing teams like plays, and they're like, "Oh, this is some good stuff." So everybody's bonding, but unfortunately, when Cheryl is at the Boone's house, someone throws a brick through their window. And the white people who do not like Coach Boone, unfortunately for him, his name rhymes easily with a racial slur.
Yeah.
That I won't repeat, but use your imagination, people. Rhymes with Boone, starts with a C.
It's an animal.
Yeah, so they shout that as they throw a brick through his window, and then
right.
His response is like, he will not be intimidated.
Nope.
You can see when he's like he's back at school, he's being interviewed by the press, and he's got state troopers like protecting him now.
Right.
But he's like, I will not be intimidated. And we learned at the beginning, like when he was getting offered the head coaching job, like he had come from North Carolina. They call him like a race man. So he's like not one of those, he's not afraid to like be open about racism and stuff like that. He's marched with Dr. King. He's stood toe to toe with the Klan. So like this is a person who's like been through it.
Right.
And is like outspoken about it. And Coach Yost is like, maybe you should chill out about that. And he keeps talking to him about like the sin of pride and like how that put his daughter in danger. And Coach Boone says, "You think a brick was thrown through my window because of my sins? Do you think that was my fault?" Which I was like, yeah, good point.
Yeah, exactly. Uh-huh.
It was not him. Do you understand that even if he was quiet, someone would still throw a brick through his window because he would still be black?
Exactly. Yeah.
Also, apparently in real life, it was not a brick. It was like a toilet.
Really?
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I'd be afraid of somebody that could throw a toilet.
Right.
I've replaced a toilet. They ain't light.
And in the 70s, it was probably worse.
Probably.
Yeah,
it had to have been a couple of people that threw a toilet through a window.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I gotta find. There wasn't a brick thrown through my window, Boone says in his DVD commentary. It was something far more devastating to any human being than a brick could be. I guess Disney, being the family movie production company that it is, felt that to depict a toilet stool coming through your window was a bit much. I've never gotten over that. So I guess it was just like that incident that particular night, because I could never understand. Well, he said, "I could never understand how anybody could feel so bad about another human being as to throw a toilet commode through a window."
Oh, well, so maybe it was the whole thing. Jeez.
Maybe it wasn't the seat, just like that's the
bowl,
heavy part.
It's still it's the heavy part. Trust me. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what happened in real life. So a brick was actually mild.
We got the Disney version of that.
Yeah. Although I think I imagine on a grand scale, bricks through windows were probably more common than
sure, or rocks or whatever.
Yeah, bricks, rocks, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he's also like carrying the brick around. To be clear, on the when he's being interviewed, he has the brick in his hand.
Yeah, been kind of tougher to make a statement with a toilet.
Roll it. You have a cart, like the Home Depot cart.
Although he could say, "I'm not taking any shit off of anybody."
He could sit on it on a cart and have someone push him around.
There you go.
While being interviewed.
Yeah.
On his throne. It is like wild to imagine someone launching a toilet through a window.
It is really, yeah. So.
And that would take out your whole window.
Oh yeah, you kidding me? Yeah.
Anyways, The team, meanwhile, is meeting because they're like, they've won their last couple games, but they're like, we're not like playing that good. The vibe is not great.
Yeah, I mean
We need to
they're
like,
winning, but I mean, it's just because they're that good.
yeah, they're winning like ugly. They're winning
Mhm.
barely, even then, which again is not real life, but like they're not. They don't have the same vibe they had like in camp, so they're like, we need to get it together. So the next game, they're like, hey, coach, we have a new warm up that we
Mhm.
want to do. One of my favorite parts of the movie, for sure. So they come out like doing a dance. They're like in formation, walking out in lines, doing a dance. And they're like, ooh, how you feel? Ooh, real good. And then they do their like song. Everywhere we go, people want to know who we
Who we
are.
are.
So we tell them we
We
are
did
the
that in
Titans.
my high school.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was their full choreography?
The cheerleaders it was, yeah. So and
Okay.
now and this was in 1973, 74, 75. So but I was remember, yeah, it was like everywhere we go, people want to know who we are. So we tell them we are, and we were the Benson Tigers. So we are the Tigers, the mighty mighty Tigers.
That's like there's a frosted flakes.
Yeah, exactly. So, and everywhere we go, but they, yeah, I mean, when they did that, I thought, oh, that took me right back to my high school days. So,
Yeah, I'm sure my high school could have done that at the time too. I have to ask my parents because they went there, but
yeah, so
you have a 2 syllable
sure.
thing because we were the Mustangs and Mighty Mighty Mustangs would
Oh,
actually
that,
sound
yeah.
really good.
Well, see, I thought Mighty Mighty Tigers was good,
It
because
is good.
I knew that before I knew Mighty Mighty Titans, which is good too. So,
Yes, yes. I hope they did Mighty Mighty Mustangs because alliteration
oh yeah,
is
yeah, come
great.
on, that'd be good. Yeah, yeah.
And also when my parents went to my high school, they had
Mhm.
a horse.
Oh,
Someone would ride a horse at like football games.
that's
Like
cool.
that's crazy. We had nothing
Yeah,
as a sport when I was
yeah,
there.
yeah. We didn't have a tiger.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. Marshall had a buffalo. I went to Marshall University. We had a real Marco the buffalo.
those are probably easier to come by in West Virginia than tigers.
Probably. Yeah. Although, if you think about Tiger King, he was probably, we probably had somebody like Tiger King in West Virginia that we could have found a tiger, if we'd have looked hard.
I'm sure there was a joke that way.
I'm sure. So,
Yeah. So the football team is doing like full choreo. The other team, who are supposed to be these like
oh,
really fierce, are all just watching them. And he's like, their coach is like, can you warm up? Stop looking at them.
is
Who
that
they
the
think they
coach
are,
that
the
called?
Beatles. This is the game where, first of all, Cheryl is very excited, and Nikki, who's Boone's daughter, and like this is a line reading that lives in my brain because I think of it all the time. And she goes, Cheryl, I do not care. The amount of times in my life I want to say that to people in just that way.
Just that way.
I do not care.
Yeah, where she's trying to explain to her what's going on in the football game and
Yeah.
stuff, and yeah,
Nope. I don't want to know.
as goes
Sometimes at
the
work, people are telling me stuff. I do not care.
the actor that played Coach Boone's daughter, she was excellent. So
Yes.
and
And has gone on to be in many things. Hayden Panettiere.
oh, the cheerleaders.
Yes.
No, not cheerleader, heroes.
Yes. She was the cheerleader
She
in
was the
Heroes.
cheerleader in
Save the
Heroes. Yeah,
cheerleader, save the world. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So this is the game though where Ray, there's like a really good nose guard on the other team, and Ray, Gary's race friend, fully decides not to block for Rev,
Mm,
and pretends that he like didn't hear the play call, which he obviously did,
yeah.
because Louis is yelling right next to him.
Right. Louis yelling the audible, like,
Yes, which was Omaha,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
favorite audible of Peyton Manning. Uh, so yeah, Rev gets his wrist broken. Sunshine has to go in, and Sunshine's like, what? I can't make the pitch.
Yeah.
Um, I love this too. Coach Boone tells him like a at least partially made up story about how he was the youngest of 12 siblings and had to take care of them when both of their parents died. And then
Mm-hmm.
his assistant coach is like, "You have 12 brothers and sisters?" And he's like, "I have 8." He's like, "Oh yeah, 12 sounds better.
12 sounds better. That was good. Yeah.
But Sunshine steps up immediately. First play, he sets it up. He's like, let the nose guard through. Don't block him. He bends over and flips the guy. He like tabletops him basically.
Yeah.
And that guy has to be carted off the field. And then they're just like, he's just throwing dimes. They're just racking up points everywhere. They beat this team Groveton, which was undefeated. Gary knows that Ray missed the block on purpose, and he tells Coach Boone, like, he's like, I know you don't cut people, but like, he missed this block on purpose, and he cannot be on this team anymore. And the coach is like, basically like, okay, well, you can cut him then.
Yeah.
So, which on one hand, I'm like, wait, empower him, but also I'm like, that's really like, it feels like that should be your job.
Yeah. You're kind of passing the buck.
You're so he's 17.
Yeah. But because he tells him, doesn't he tell him? Because if you want to cut him, you cut him.
Yeah, like you're the captain.
Yeah,
like,
you tell him.
Yeah, so he tells him, and Ray is, angry. He's sort of like, basically, Gary is like a race traitor, right? Like, whatever. If it wasn't a Disney movie, I think he would call him like an N-word lover. It's like the vibe he gives off.
I was going to say the same thing. It was that's yeah. If it wasn't a Disney movie, it probably would have gone into that.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you love those people, kind of thing.
Because you don't hear the word. I mean, in some movies we've talked about and stuff. We have.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one thing. And this is supposed to be about race.
Yeah. So and I think Disney like cleaned it up a lot.
Yeah, it's maybe a laundered version of that, but you still get the impact.
Yeah, you get the feeling for sure. And then I think that also makes the team vibe like better. Like Julius goes to Gary's house. That's like such an interesting scene because he's in this like white neighborhood, just looking like kind of terrified. Dressed very well, I will say. I loved his outfit.
Yes.
He had like the leather jacket and stuff. Like the cop rolls up on him and he's like, hello, officer. And he's just like, oh, you guys had a great game last night. You guys are like the best defense I've seen in 20 years. Tell your coach he's doing a great job. And he's like, yes, I will do that, officer. Thank you. And I always love the part too when he goes in Gary's house and the mom tries to shake his hand and he just picks her up.
Yeah.
He hugs her and lifts her off the ground and she's just like, ah.
She looks terrified.
Yeah. But the tension is broken. They clearly
they've bonded.
Yes. And then we get a montage of like the Titans dominating, bringing the town together to this long, cool woman in a black dress song, which again, if you don't know that by title, play it, and you have heard it in like any movie where there is a part in the 70s. Like correct. I think of like Forrest Gump, it's in there. Like you get it's like this in CCR, like we said. Every 70s movie you get these songs.
Oh, so. Yeah, you gotta have the Hollies. So
yes. You get the Hollies and you get Creedence Clearwater Revival, like that.
Exactly.
And then you get like James Taylor also. I've seen Fire and I've seen Rain. That's in the movie too. I feel like those feel very like stereotypical of the 70s to me in movies. But yeah, it's like there's a montage of like them again racking up wins, being embraced by the town and the school and the general.
The team's really getting along. Everything's clicking. All the cylinders are firing. Everything's meshing. So
yes. There's like businesses in town have signs. I love the one that was like Titans eat free, and then it shows them just like shoving their face full of waffles, and then they erase it. Titans do not eat free.
Yeah. It's like, well, that lasted one time maybe. So
yeah, they're like holding up waffles to shove one waffle entirely in their mouth. So one of the other things that we learned earlier about Coach Yost is that he is nominated for the Virginia High School Hall of Fame, which I also learned at the time in 1971 that did not exist.
Oh, okay.
So it exists now, but it didn't exist. So that wasn't really a thing. But the guys for the Hall of Fame were like, hey, so here's what we want to happen. We want you guys to lose a game, then Boone's out, and then you're the head coach.
Hmm.
And Yost is like, oh, well, we're not like going to lose the game. And they're like, oh, don't worry. We got it.
Yeah, no,
We're
you're going to
taking care
lose
of
a
it.
game. Yeah.
Like, I'm not asking you to throw it. Like, we've taken care of it. This is also another like big game. And this is the opposing head coach who is racist. He will not trade film with Coach Boone and calls him a monkey,
Hmm.
which, if for some reason you don't know, that is racist. And then the game starting, and the refs are obviously cheating. Like they are throwing flags left and right
And
just for no reason.
I was going to say they're just standing there and they're calling a foul on the Titans,
Yeah,
or
and like even when like Coach Boone is trying to be like nice, he's like, "Sir, Mr. Official, sir." They're like another 15 yards.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and then
Or
also Boone's freaking out.
and I think one of them said, if you want to stay in this game, you'll keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, yeah. So they're threatening to throw him out. And then at some point, Coach Yost, another like just like blatantly ridiculous call. Coach Yost calls on the head ref and is like gets in his face and he's like, I know what you're doing. And you need to call this game fair or he says, I'm gonna go to the paper.
Mm,
The way that he says that is just very funny to me. But he's basically, I'm gonna tell the media, I don't care if I go down with you.
right. I'm going to blow the whistle.
I'm gonna like blow this whole thing up. Like, so you better call it fair. So they do. And also Coach Yost gives them a pep talk where he always a fun part in a movie, kind of mentions the title. He says,
Um,
you make sure they remember forever the night that they played the Titans.
so
So
can
remember
I
the Titans.
can I make an observation right after that? And when he said it was like, okay, he told the ref to call the game fairly, but there looked like to be some really sketchy hits then after that, and I think maybe some of them might have merited a whistle and a flag. I'm just
Yes.
saying.
Oh, for sure. We are unnecessary. We are doing unnecessary roughness. Like, oh, now you're not going to make any calls against us.
I was going to say
We're just
it just
like
went the other way. I
taking
thought.
out people's knees.
It,
I also the other thing that I thought was weird, and this probably should have merited a flag, was like Gary Bertier made a good tackle and then just like pointed at the other coach who looked like very intimidated. I was like, what is happening? What are
I
we
know.
doing?
But yeah, I was like,
Are
because
you threatening the coach? Because he
didn't he
just
say
like
he goes, I
stopped
don't,
and pointed at him.
he didn't want them to cross the line of scrimmage, for the rest of the game or whatever. And that's like,
Yes, he's
dude,
like, I don't want them to gain another yard.
yard, you keep them in their own field or whatever. So yeah. So
Yeah, he
anyway,
basically said another receiver should not cross the line of scrimmage.
yeah.
I
So
don't know if it was this one or if that was the
maybe
statement.
that was the next. Yeah. So,
But he
but
does say in this one, I don't want them to gain another yard. He says it in that voice.
yeah,
Like he's Macho Man.
he's got that clenched teeth.
Brother, they're not gonna gain another yard. They win.
Is it after the game then that they come up to Coach Yost?
And they say you've lost the Hall of Fame. Um, and he's
Oh
like,
well.
okay, but this is the state semifinal is the how
Mm.
it's set up. The Titans are going to state. And also in the handshake line,
Oh.
uh, the other coach will not shake Coach Boone's hand, Denzel Washington's hand, and so when the coach walks past, he goes, "Hey, coach," and then he throws him a banana since he had called him a monkey.
Which I thought was really funny. So
Yeah,
so I wondered how he kept that banana, safe during the whole time during the ball game. But I guess
I
maybe
know.
he didn't have it in his pocket the whole time. So
Yeah, it was not brown at all. It was nice.
no, no.
Also, the other best part when they tell Coach Yost he can't be in the Hall of Fame is that he's then comforting his daughter about it.
Oh, I know. She's like,
He was
really?
so upset, and he's like, I really wanted it. I really wanted the Hall of Fame. And he's like, there's always next year, there's a year after. She's like, well, no, I don't even want it anymore. They can keep it. But yeah, so the Titans are going to state. Everybody's really excited. They're all gathering at the school. Everybody's going to go do some things. Gary's girlfriend, Emma, is like, hey, guess what? You know what? I'm going to try to stop being racist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on it. She's open now. She's like, okay, great first step. Gary wants Julius to come hang out with him, but Julius is like, I'd actually like to hang out with my girlfriend, who we have never seen before, that now exists.
Yeah, that seemed kind of abrupt, didn't it? Like it was
Yes.
like all of a sudden Julius has a girlfriend, and
I guess he's been neglecting her the whole season. Now he
well,
has to pay attention.
it's almost like yeah, because it was sort of like even with Gary's girlfriend, it was just sort of like in and out, and then all of a sudden Julius has a girlfriend. But you would have thought
Right.
at some point, we would have maybe been introduced to her a little bit earlier in the movie. But I get, whatever. So,
Also, this Coach Boone gets home, and all the white neighbors who had been suspicious of him before are now outside on their porches cheering for him
oh, I
for
know.
making it to the state championship. So it's a very jovial atmosphere all around. I guess they don't think he's a mover anymore. They don't feel he's invading.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're happy. And then things take a turn. So Gary is leaving the school. He's driving down the street. Everybody's like waving to him. He is not looking at the road. And then he gets broadsided very fast
Mm-hmm.
and ends up in the hospital. The whole team is in the hospital, all the coaches, Gary's mom, like everybody's there. Julius arrives. He's like very upset when he hears that Gary is now paralyzed from the waist down. I think in real life it was the chest down, but close enough, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but either way, he's going to be in a wheelchair. He's not going to walk in. And then he talks to the mom, and it's clear that like they have bonded because she's
Mm-hmm.
like, Julius, like you're the only person that he wants to see right now, which is like, dang, rude. He doesn't want to see his mom.
Doesn't want to see the coach or anybody else.
Nope, he
So,
just wants to see Julius. She's like, you know what, Julius, like you better get it together because your tears are not going to help my son walk again, and like da da da. Um, I also always love this part too when Julius goes in and the nurse is like, only
oh,
Ken can be in here. And Gary's like, Alice, are you blind? Don't you see the family resemblance? That's my brother. Every
mm-hmm.
time I'm like, oh.
I know. I know that was that's such a good moment. And then and I like how the nurse smiles and she goes, "Oh," she goes, "Now I see it." So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's very sweet. Um, but yeah, they talk and it's like emotional, right? Because
mm-hmm.
I think Gary's trying to sort of put on a brave face and like Julius is like, I can't like accept that you're like hurt like this, and that's like hard for Gary to hear a little bit, and but he's like, you know what, you gotta like
Mm-hmm.
lead the team, like
Yeah.
I'm gonna figure it out, and you got to move forward, kind of thing, and that's sort of where they're at. They're trying to figure out how to move forward, like. So Boone is like, okay, we'll do some extra practices so people can kind of like get back into the swing of things. And Coach Yost is like, how are you still thinking about like winning right now? And he's like, Boone's like, well, that's like, what we're like here to do.
Yeah, it's yeah, again, you sort of get the idea that they come from two different places about coaching. Yost
Yeah.
is more touchy-feely, I think, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
And Boone cares, but Boone also, like, he's a football coach. So,
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, we're here to like win football games. And I think you even see this when Yost, the team goes to visit Gary again. And Yost is like, you know what? Let's not talk about, like, Gary's talking about the game. And
mm,
he's like, let's not talk about the game. This is a time for reflection and prayer. And Gary's like, I'm hurt. I'm not dead.
exactly.
And
And
he's like, well, you are not.
yeah, because to Gary, he still cares about the team, and he still
Yes.
cares. He's been with them all this time, and I'm certain, that's the foremost thing on his mind is, you know, other than the fact that yeah, it sucks that he's hurt, but now his team is going into the state finals, and I'm
Yeah.
sure he's thinking I'm not there to help him, but
But
I
I'm going
want
to
you
do everything I can
exactly. I still want
from
you
where I'm
guys to
at.
go out there and win. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And he talks about, he's like, I'm going to figure, he still cares about, like, he's talking about, like, going to the Paralympics,
mm-hmm.
like, already, right? He, like,
Yeah,
just got hurt and he's like, they have Olympics for people in wheelchairs. Like,
yeah,
I'm
I
going to
can,
figure it out. I'm still trying to compete,
right.
basically.
Yeah, I'm going to look into that. So,
Yeah. So, and then we learn later in the, like, the postscript, and this is real, that Gary Bertier did go on to win a gold medal in shot put at Paralympics. So in real life, he followed through. And
yeah,
it says that Coach Yost was coach. I don't know if that was real, but that's what they say at the end of the movie.
Yeah, she says because he was yeah
Yeah,
the daughter
and Daddy
says
coached him.
daddy coached him. So I guess Coach Yost knows about shot putting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can learn.
Yeah.
So, state championship game, it's here. As we're leading up to the game, first of all, we learned that Louis has a C average. He can go to college.
And he's like emotional about this.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is a big deal.
it
He's
is.
he's eligible. I love that. He goes, I'm eligible. And Boone, Coach Boone goes, well, I'm married.
But yeah, that's a really sweet moment. And then Petey wants to play. We didn't talk about this before, but there was a game earlier where Petey was getting beat, and he just kind of stomped away
Yeah.
from the huddle, and Yost replaced him. Now Petey wants to play, and Coach Yost is like, "Well, no, you walked away when we needed you. You don't get to just come on back.
Mm-hmm.
So you can sit on the bench and you can play for me next year."
Right.
Gary is watching from his hospital room.
Mm.
His mom arrives at the stadium to like a standing O,
Mm.
which was very sweet. And then this part, I was like, what the heck? Right as they're about to start playing, they're on the field, like lined up. And then Emma, Gary's girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, Kate Bosworth, comes up onto the sideline
Mm-hmm.
and is like, Julius? And Coach Hines is like, ma'am, you can't be here, which is true. Girl, you couldn't have done this earlier. You waited until the game's about to start. But she comes to formally introduce herself to Julius and shake his hand because she's not racist anymore, I guess. She's moving past it. But
Yeah.
it was like, of all the moments, like, he's busy.
Well, this put him in a better frame of mind. Now
I guess so.
he
Yes.
can compete now without that hanging over his head. So
Yes. And I mean, he was fine with it, but it was funny to me. It was just like,
yeah, it was
of all
like
the moments, this is when
right.
you decide to do this. Then the game starts. And yes, Ryan Gosling is getting beat regularly. Gary is in his hospital room yelling at the TV. This is like watching sports with my mother. And I love the nurse comes in and he's like, do not come in here. Like throwing something at the
Yeah,
door.
because she thought something was wrong with him.
Right, because he's screaming.
Yeah.
And he's like, go away.
Yeah.
And it's halftime. They're down. First of all, the game, they're making it seem like they're getting whooped, but they're only down 7-0 at halftime.
Right. It's only by one touchdown.
Like
so.
the what they show us like of the game, it's like, God, they're getting whooped. They must be down like 21-0. It was 7-0. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But it's not that dramatic, but
still a one possession game.
Right. You can score 10 points in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So, Cheryl counseled her dad not to be proud. This is not a time to be proud. So he asked for Coach Boone's help. He's like, my defense is getting lit up. Can you help? Alan decides he's getting beat so much, he gives up his spot to Petey. He says put Petey in, and Coach Yost says, you go. If you want to give up your spot to Petey, you go give up your spot to Petey. So he has to go talk to him. And then Petey goes back in. I also love this part. There's a guy off sides of the other team, and Boone is just yelling. He's like, he's offside. Screaming at the ref, like in the ref ear, like, he is offside. Can you not see him? He is offside. Just straight up yelling at him. And then, it's coming down to the end. They score 3 points. They scored a field goal, so it's 7-3.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, they need to score. It's like, the final seconds of the game, whatever. And they bring in Rev for a trick play.
Mm.
Rev, who like in real high school, I feel like if you broke your wrist, they don't let you dress. But that's.
I wondered about that.
I did too. I was like, he would be
he'd be on the sidelines, but he wouldn't be dressed, right?
Right. You would wear like, maybe he could wear his jersey, but he'd be in like jeans.
Right. Yeah. And he wouldn't be wearing pads or
no, not at all.
So.
But he goes in and they score and the Titans win. They won the state championship and they came like second in the national championship or something.
So in the national, in the nationals, whatever that was, because that was what class 3 ball or whatever.
Yeah, they said 3A.
3A.
Oh yeah, because when Boone said he came from North Carolina, Tyrell's like, well, that's 2A ball down there. We play
Hmm.
3A ball up here. And then and Boone was like, well, then I guess it'll be a great learning opportunity for me.
That was
But
because I was going to say my high school was 2A, double A.
oh yeah, ours was 4A.
Ooh.
But yeah, so the Titans won, racism solved.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we learned like Gary won gold in the shot put at the Paralympics. He died 10 years later, so that's the funeral that they're all gathered for, is Gary Bertier's funeral in 1981. So
Can I
they,
just, and
yeah,
oddly enough, he died in a car accident,
yeah, yeah, he was hit by a drunk driver, I
hit by a
believe.
drunk driver. Yeah, so
um
two car accidents, and one paralyzed him, one killed him. So
yeah,
terrible. And
seriously. But yeah, so it's the funeral, and you see all the players and like Cheryl, and they're all like grown.
mm-hmm.
And Julius is there holding his Gary Bertier's mom's hand,
Oh no, that's
which you
sweet.
never would have imagined like an hour ago in the movie. So that part's always very emotional. I love like those two, and they remained close. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
what they say. Like those two were like still best friends. Like until Gary died, and then they all sing the na 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 na
From
hey
Steam. Hey,
goodbye,
hey, good.
but they in like a somber
Yeah. So
version. But but yeah, and then we get some little facts about other people. Like I think obviously we know about Gary. Julius like went on to work for the city of Alexandria. Edie, I think, worked for the Board of Education in Alexandria. Louis went to college
yeah,
in
and it
Austin.
was a businessman or something, wasn't he? Didn't he
He's a
become?
business, and they said he was a businessman in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what they said. Sunshine did. He went to the University of South Carolina,
Yeah.
and then he was in doing something, working in South Carolina.
Right.
I think, forget if there was anything else, but
I mean, I like that. What Coach Coach Yost worked with Coach Boone for a few more years, and then either retired or Coach Boone retired in '91. I think they said, didn't he,
yeah.
from coaching? And Coach Yost went on to, I guess, another school, maybe, I think,
Hmm.
and then he, I guess, he retired. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Um, but yeah, so I think it's like a feel good movie. Obviously, like it's not exactly history, but
it's not
they
bad
wanted to.
though. I mean, when you,
It's not bad. It didn't deviate in like really meaning. It just made it like more dramatic, right? Like
yeah,
if every game was a blowout, like that would not be as exciting of a movie,
right.
right?
Although I guess you could have done it as a testament to Coach Boone's tactics and leadership. That his
Mhm.
team was that good.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
but see, I forgot about when the schools merging. But then when you think about it, he had a big pool of talent to pull from, though, too, from three high schools. Then he gets these the best of these three schools and puts together a team. So
yeah. And I think I read a quote from like one of the players who was on the team was like, "We probably could have won states without a coach." Like,
oh,
with there's like
really?
so
So
many like good people, like
good
they were so
good
deep.
players.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that they're just kind of like just throw ourselves out there and
there
we'll
you go.
win. So that would
Well,
have been perhaps a less entertaining movie, but
yeah, and they sort of alluded to that in the thing that they, even though they were playing bad a couple of games, they were still winning. That
yeah,
this is not how we normally play, but they still won. So
yeah,
um,
yeah. But I think it's just I appreciate it as like you know it does sometimes feel a little bit like I'm joking about like football solving racism. It sometimes does. It's a Disney movie, so it is like, and
sure.
everybody got along and it's all okay, which is obviously not like real life. But I do appreciate that they showed like some different like I don't know, like perspectives of things, right?
Mm,
Like the stuff between Coach Yost and Coach Boone, which is it's a coaching philosophy thing, but it is also like a racial thing, right? Like you are going behind me to be nice to the black boys
mm-hmm.
and you're not doing that for the white boys. Like what is that?
Right. Yeah.
You're not doing them a service. And then you have like the stuff between Gary and Julius, the stuff between Gary and Ray and his girlfriend being like, what is wrong with you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're just here to like play. And then you have the stuff between like with like Sunshine, who's like a good guy, right? Just like trying to be nice and like have everybody get along. And some of the black guys are like, that's just not our life.
Yeah. Or
So
Louis, he just wants to play football. He's I just want to hit people.
yeah, he's like, if I got to be in high school, I might as well hit some people. And Spoon's like, I like that. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But yeah, I did appreciate getting some of those different perspectives. And again, that might not have all been like the actual thing that happened, right? Like, oh, I think it is probably, like we said, more of the tension came from just like competition. I also agree with the screenwriter that like to say that like none of it was racial tension would be naive, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I said, I grew up during those times, and it
Yeah.
wasn't. There were things said about black people. Like I said, I grew up in a small town in West Virginia, and there was, we had, like the bigger high schools up in the city. I was in the suburbs, had black students and so on, and then of course Marshall University was just right up the road and had students from all over the country. So but there
Mm-hmm.
was, but in our little burb, whatever, it wasn't very there wasn't very many, and I didn't, you know we didn't certainly encounter a lot of people, and it was kind of segregated where black people lived and where white people lived and that sort of thing. So yeah, I can remember the attitudes of the times.
I went, my school was in our county the only predominantly black school.
Oh,
There
really?
were a lot of schools that had, there were some schools that were close, very
Mm-hmm.
racially diverse, and some schools that were not at all.
No.
And the way that people talked about our school, like, you know,
Really?
yeah. When I
Really?
was a junior,
And
our,
what year was this when you were?
I was in high school from 2004 to 2008.
So it was okay.
Recent. Uh, I mean, since this movie came out. This movie came out in 2000. Uh, our football team went to another school, and when our school came, and I don't know if these people had them up all the time, but there were
Mm-hmm.
Confederate flags up when our school rolled in to play
Is that
football
right?
there.
No
Yeah,
kidding. Huh.
yeah, and yeah, the way people like disparaged it, talked about how dangerous it was, like, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, huh, I wonder why that is.
Yeah.
Why do people talk about our school like that and not other schools where things happen? Interesting.
It is
So,
interesting
but
because
yeah.
especially when you talk about the time frame.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I can go back 50 years and I can see, I can remember that, that time and so on. But to go back 20 years, and well, even today, I mean, I'm not that naive where I think, that, yes, we've come a long way, but yes, we still have a long way to go. But that's, that's still disturbing to me.
But I think this movie, even though some of it is a little bit like, woohoo, we all get along, I think that it does speak to like, and like this is corny, but the way that I feel about sports sometimes, like, right, we just finished like the Olympics and the Paralympics, and I think that there are things that are wrong with those competitions, obviously. But I do think that like just like, I don't know, there is like a power of sports to just like,
I agree.
we're just here for like a common goal, and really there are like inequalities that exist, but like ultimately when you step on a field or a court or a track or whatever, like truly like anything can happen, like anyone
Yes,
can win.
anyone can win. I mean, and I think, yeah, I think especially when you bring athletes from all over the world, and
Mm-hmm.
it could be anyone from anywhere, who could
Right.
excel at one thing or another. It's not, oh, well, this country's better at this, or that country's better, or these people are better than this, or,
Mm-hmm.
or at this. It could be anybody, anywhere, anytime. So
Yeah,
it
anyone can get beat, even like the people that are like, right, Simone Biles didn't win
right.
everything, right? Like they all on the balance beam, like all the people that were the best, like Rebecca Andrade
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
Suni Lee and Simone Biles, they all got like fourth, fifth, and sixth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these little Italian girls are getting the gold in on balance beam that you never heard of, right? So yeah, I think like that kind of stuff is like a thing that I still like love about sports. That really it is like, you know, this is like a football thing, but like any given Sunday, right? Like it is.
Right. It can transcend all that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about it's not who the best person is or whatever. It's whoever's the best athlete or the best, the or is able to embrace that, feeling, or that determination or whatever it may be. So
Correct. Yeah.
the old saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog.
Right. It's really about like rising to the occasion in that moment, right? Like
Exactly.
Simone Biles can win every award ever, but like Simone Biles, just like all those other women, have to like step up right then and execute. And certainly she does, right?
Yeah,
But
but
also there are moments when she falters and someone
yeah,
else can come in, or like, you know,
yeah.
Noah Lyles, all the like the Jamaican sprinters, right? Like that, the lady from
Oh,
Julian Alford who
mm,
won the women's 100 meter. Like, never heard of that lady, right? All we were hearing about Carrie Richardson the whole time.
mm-hmm.
But in that moment, she stepped up
She stepped up, and
and she won. So I think that's always really interesting. And then like the Paralympics, I don't know how much of that you watched. I know
I
we
watched
talked a
as
little bit
much as I
about it,
possibly
but
could.
it's just
So
like the ways that people like overcome and like the accommodations, and also the what was interesting to me is like the sort of the diversity
mm-hmm.
of abilities, right? Like with all the different classes, you have like upper limb differences, you have lower limb, you have people with like prosthetics, you have people with like visual impairments, you have people like who are like dealing with like little people, you have people in wheelchairs, like
Or people with neurological issues, like where they have numbness or stiffness of the limbs and
yes,
stuff,
and
where
people with like cerebral palsy and stuff
right,
too.
where it's not apparent that there's a physical issue going on, but
Mm-hmm.
then when you see them try to perform, and one that stands out to me was, I don't know if you, the archer from the United States who won, the man who won the gold medal with no arms.
One of the women who won was a
Oh,
17-year-old from India with the same thing.
with no arms.
Yeah, and they used
It,
their feet and their mouth to do it.
it, to watch them, I can't even imagine how they train to
Mm-hmm.
do that. I mean, I'm, I have all four limbs, and I couldn't shoot a bow and arrow to save my life.
And they were
And
getting 10. Like,
probably if I trained hundreds of hours, I still couldn't do what they do
agreed.
with their limitations, with their
Yeah,
physical limitations. But they have no really limitations. I mean, for them to do that, I mean, that's unbelievable.
for sure. And the people I was watching, I watched a clip of the long jump. Did you
Uh,
watch this for the blind people where
Yes.
they like get set and their guide just like yells for them to know like when to
When to leap.
jump? Like that's crazy. I was talking to a friend. I was like, if I was like running and I couldn't see and someone yelled, I would like fall over. I would be like, ugh, and
Well,
just fall over.
they had blind soccer where they were tapping the
Yeah, they hit
outline
the
of
post and they have a bell
in the
in the
thing.
ball. So they were. It was interesting because they were saying one of the correspondents was like, you can tell when people, because it's near the Eiffel Tower, that stadium, that people will be outside cheering, and like when you get by that stadium, you have to be quiet so that the players can hear
In here.
the bell in the ball and they could hear. I was watching them take PKs and they have their guy going like clang 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 clang.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, my God, can you imagine?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't walk 3 feet without being able to see
Right, right. And like I was watching sitting volleyball, like
volleyball. And one of the athletes on, I think it was from the United States, the girl who just hammered the spikes and stuff like that.
mm-hmm.
She was unbelievable. She was a machine.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
sit there and you think, how do they, maneuver and stuff like, yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Sports, and not just, for that, but sports can transcend, I think, a lot of things, whether it's racism or inequality, or politics or economics. It's not always the richest, or the one with the most influence or whatever it may be that necessarily rises to the top of the of the field. So
Yeah. And like I said, I think that all of those things exist. Like they do, like access is a problem, and like who can train and who has equipment and like all that kind of stuff.
sure, yeah,
Like again, like I'm saying, like at the moment that you step, you're in the pool or you're on the court or whatever, like in that moment, like really there is an opportunity for like anybody to
mm-hmm.
win. And I think
Win.
that's like that always makes me feel hopeful and like
Yeah,
good.
I agree. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like watching the Paralympics, I was like, I'm glad that they like show them more now because
Mm-hmm.
it's like
Still
so cool
wasn't
to
as
watch.
extensive as coverage as the regular, but
Definitely not. Also, I want to say they had break dancers, Paralympic break dancers in like the opening ceremonies of the Paralympics. Why get rid of ray gun and give me them because they were actually breakdancing. They were not
exact.
doing that nonsense that ray gun was doing.
I don't even know what that was. But
But yeah, anyways,
anyway, so great selection, by the
thank
way.
you. Yeah, I think the sports were great. As we talked about, the soundtrack was
Fabulous.
great, full of great 70s classics. Look it up. The cast is great. Obviously, we've got Denzel, we've got Will Patton as Coach Yost. He's been in a ton of things.
Mm-hmm.
He was on like Yellowstone. He was in the movie Armageddon,
So,
like a bunch of Kevin Costner movies.
oh yeah, I think him and Kevin Costner are buddies. So,
Yeah. Wood Harris is Julius Campbell. He was on The Wire, Paid in Full. He's been in the Creed movies most recently. He was like one of the trainers there. Gary Bertier, played by Ryan Hurst, who you probably recognize mostly from Sons of Anarchy.
played Opie.
Opie, yeah. And he's also on The Walking Dead. Donald Faison, as we talked about, he plays P.D. Jones from
Honestly
Clueless.
didn't know him until Scrubs, and now all of a sudden, because of you, I find out he's been in all these other movies and
Yeah,
stuff.
this is
So,
yeah. For me, he was in like these things exist before Scrubs in my brain. But yeah,
yeah,
now
see,
you see him on T-Mobile commercials all the time with
what's his name? The other
Zach
guy from
Braff.
Scrubs.
I
Yeah,
almost called him JD.
yeah.
With Zach Braff. Louis Lastic is played by Ethan Suplee. He is someone who's been in a lot of things too. He was on Boy Meets World. He was the brother on My Name Is Earl. He was in American History X, John Q. He was in Wolf of Wall Street, etc.
Oh, John Q, another Denzel Washington movie.
Yes, love that movie. There was a period when it kept coming on recently, and I kept watching it.
Oh, really?
I
I'm
love Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington, put him on screen, reading a phone book, like whatever, it's fine. But yeah, like Nicole Ari Parker is in this as his wife. Hayden Panettiere, we mentioned. Sunshine's played by Kit Pardue, who's been in a lot of other things. Well, he's actually in a bunch of other movies that I picked.
oh, okay.
But I'm a cheerleader, and 13. Kate Bosworth, as we mentioned, she's in this. You've seen her in other things like
Oh, yeah.
Blue Crust is always what I remember her from, but she was in Superman Returns,
Right.
21,
I was going to
Still
say, yeah.
Alice, Straw Dogs, Beyond the Sea. We get a young Ryan Gosling.
Extremely young Ryan
Yeah,
Gosling.
this was 2000. See, I knew Ryan Gosling before this because he was on a little show called Young Hercules when he was a teenager, and obviously he was on the Mickey Mouse Club too. But I watched Young Hercules like religiously, and I loved it. So
First
I
time
knew
I've
Ryan
ever heard of that.
Gosling.
So
It's
I'll have to look for that.
it's as it sounds. He was Young Hercules, but yeah, now you know him. He's just 10. But yeah, a bunch of other people you've seen in other things are
I was
in
going
this.
to say,
Even like all the little bit players, you're like, oh,
hey,
I've seen that guy before. I've seen that guy before.
yeah, a lot of familiar faces,
Yeah.
and a lot of, like you said, a lot of strong performances, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and I like the fact that it was based in truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
That was one thing I was going to mention. So the writer, Gregory Allen Howard, he also wrote the screenplay for Ali, the
oh, okay.
biopic, and Harriet, the Harriet Tubman biopic that came out in like 2019 with
Oh,
Cynthia
okay.
Erivo.
Yeah.
So he's a true story, but he actually wrote this on spec, which means like he wasn't hired to write this.
He
He
just
like
did this on.
discovered this story and he wrote it, and then he like took it out to try to sell it, and then Jerry Bruckheimer produced it. So that's how like
Well,
Jerry
there you
Bruckheimer
go.
produced Yeah, he produced all the like Pirates of the Caribbean movies. He's produced a lot of like big movies and
Jerry
worked with
probably just pulled out his wallet and put it on his American Express card.
yeah, right. But yeah, I thought that like so he had been this guy Gregory Allen Howard. He'd been hired to write Ali, so he wrote Ali before this, even though Ali came out after this.
Oh,
But
okay.
like then he like discovered this story about like T.C. Williams and stuff, and then he kind of came up with this
Well, he did
movie
a
on
good
his own.
job. I mean,
Yeah,
and
I
then
thought so too.
to get the studio, then Disney to pick it up, and then and then make the movie. So,
I did just want to mention too the director. His name was Boaz Yakin. He's an Israeli American. He is a writer and a director. So
hmm
he directed Safe with Jason Statham. He wrote The Rookie. He also directed the movie Uptown Girls with Brittany Murphy and Dakota Fanning.
oh, okay.
He wrote Dirty Dancing Havana Nights, the sequel. He wrote the Prince of Persia movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, which we
That
all have
is,
hits and misses.
oh yeah,
He wrote
swing and a miss.
yes, he wrote Now You See Me.
Oh, that
He
was a good movie.
co-wrote
That was
the
entertaining.
yeah, he co-wrote the recent Western The Harder They Fall, which was good. It's on Netflix. Has
Let's see
Idris
that.
Elba. And he's worked with Eli Roth, so he produced the Hostel. He executive produced the Hostel movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this movie, I think it uh like I said, it's one I think of my dad whenever I watch it. I texted
I
him
could
that I was
see.
watching
Yeah.
it and he was like, "Great movie."
hmm
My dad loves this movie. I love it too, like I said, like the music, the actors in it, the story. It's just like, nice. We like a nice happy ending, everybody's moving past their prejudices to get along. And some people don't move past their prejudices, which I think is real.
Oh,
Which is
sure. Not everybody's going to get on board the bus or get on the train or whatever you want to call it, but that they're worse for it.
yeah.
And it is a feel good movie, but then at the beginning and at the end of it, it's sort of the bookends are it's Gary's funeral, that
Mm-hmm.
we start with and that we end with. So that sadly one of the key players in the whole thing unfortunately had a very early passing. So but that it showed, I think, that bond and that strength of of their friendship and so on.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Like seeing them all together is not
Yeah.
a place that they were at the beginning. So
Oh,
even
not at
though it
all.
is like
Yeah. Yeah.
tragedy, the fact that they're all
hmm
there together is you know
Yeah. And like you
says
said, that
something.
this the where he's comforting Gary's mother,
Mhm.
and she's just hanging on to him, and then like
Yeah.
you said, in the earlier in the movie, that was not there, that
Hmm.
was not going to be possible at all. So,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
so I enjoyed it. I really like, I'm like you, I like sports movies and football movies, the ones that are done well. And this one was done well. And then, not having the connection you did, but it was set during my time in high school. So it
Yeah. So you have a connection with an
yeah, with the time, the era, and so on and so forth, and that yeah, I even wrote in my little notes. Was there a better time to be alive than in high school on a Friday night at a football game? It was just the fall cool weather, the lights and stuff, and then your friends and your buddies and your team, not your teammates, but your classmates that were played on the team, and you went out and you were rooting for the team, and it was just and like small towns, we really paid attention to our high school football, and then that was just a big deal in town. So yeah, it was those were good times. It reminded me of those times,
yeah,
so I miss those.
absolutely.
It makes me wonder. Well, I wonder if maybe I should go back to a high school football game sometime just to go
I
watch the
think
local
about
high
that
school.
sometimes too.
Do
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, because I don't. I mean, my dad still coaches, but I don't. He lives in another state, so I don't get to go to those as much. So I'm like, maybe I'll just go back to my high school
Once
and
at
look at
the
them. But it
my
also
high school.
makes me miss being on a team. Like I played sports in high school, and I loved like being
Mm-hmm.
on the bus and like I wasn't like friends with everybody I was
Yeah,
on teams with, but
but you
when
get
we
to.
showed up there, like we we're
you had
doing
a
something together.
right, you had a common purpose, you had a goal and stuff, and then yeah, yeah, because I didn't play football or baseball. I played golf and tennis. I know it sounds elitist, but that's what I did. But your teammates and stuff, and then you had a role in that team. In addition to what you had to do as an individual, you also had a role on the team. Get that point or get that match or whatever it may be. To help us along. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
those were fun
And I
times.
was the captain, so I always had to remember I was
Oh,
like
no.
attitude is like leadership.
Oh, okay.
You know?
There you go. See, so no, I yeah, that they knew better to make me a captain of anything. So well, again, it was very enjoyable. I really did it. This one was, all your picks have been good, but like I said, this one was a lot of fun. So had to have my popcorn during this one though. This
Of
was a
course.
popcorn movie,
Great. I think again, mostly I think I love watching Denzel Washington. Like I think his
hmm
lines were so good.
and the way he
Um,
delivers them.
he
So
delivers them so great. Uh, but yeah, and I think overall it's just like it's fun to like get hyped about something. I think that's the other thing about sports. It's just like
yeah,
get like excited and like behind something. So
right, yeah.
that's always a fun piece. So
Excuse me. Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, I
Something
think
something bigger than you, or
right, right. I think if for some reason you have never seen this movie, I encourage you to watch it. Or watch a sports game. It's football season
well,
now. It's still
yeah,
baseball season.
yeah.
You can watch the WNBA. Like there's lots of options of sports to watch. There's probably
hmm
like golf something on. I don't know.
Oh well, it's the ladies Solheim Cup, which is the ladies'
Ooh.
version of the Ryder Cup. So it's the Europe and the United States. So it's on this
Okay, so
weekend.
we
So
can. There's
yeah,
teams to
and
root
actually it's
for.
just right
But
down the road, down near DC. It's down at
oh,
down
nice.
in Virginia. So
Cool, cool. Yeah, I
and
don't like
and
golf, but if you want to watch golf, that's another option for
well,
you.
I was going to say, so there's everybody has their their niche or whatever.
Mhm.
So but yeah, I was going to with and like I said, or if you are a parent of a high school athlete, maybe this might give you a little bit of taste of what it was like maybe 50 years ago or that sort of thing. So
Yeah,
enjoy.
yeah.
So enjoy the
For
movie.
sure. Yeah. I think it's just you could just see like the unity of the town. I think that's another piece of it too. Like I've been at professional sports games and like the team is going crazy and like people you've never met are like hugging you. I remember
Mm-hmm.
one time I was at a game with my mom and the team like made a comeback in overtime and like this man in front of my mom like picked her up. Like someone behind me was like holding onto my sweatshirt so hard they almost lifted me out of my seat.
Oh
It was a
gosh.
stranger. But it's like those kinds of things. Like everybody is just like
Oh
so
yeah.
excited. We're all like on the same team. So I think yeah, just even if you're not a sports person, just like try to get in. Give it a chance. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Because
find one that you can like find entertaining. Because I like
hmm
that's why I feel like during the Olympics, like everybody I know is like gets so into it even if they're not normally a sports person. So maybe it's
agreed.
the Olympics is the thing for you. But I think yeah, like just finding something like that is always I think cool. And I think sports has such like power to be a platform for people and to be like uniting and
hmm
transcendent and all these kinds of things. I think in
Yeah.
some ways people use it for like the worst, but I think it can be also like used for good.
For the best, right? It can give someone a platform, or it can pluck someone out of obscurity, and all of a sudden they're in the national or the international spotlight, and it's like they
Mm-hmm.
can
Mm-hmm.
they can become a I want to be like that, or I could do that,
Exactly.
or if they can do that, what can I do, or that sort of thing.
Agreed. Agreed.
So
Well, and also just a little preview. We're going to be on a little football run for here
hmm
the next little bit since we're in football season and
football
Jim and I both like
season,
football. So stay
it's
tuned
game
for
day, baby.
a few more fall themed movies over the next couple of weeks. As I always say, you can follow us on Instagram. We like to post little previews of what's coming. You can see all the other ones that we've talked about. The Instagram is some of our parts pod. You can also please subscribe to this wherever you get your podcast. You can also rate and review, especially if you have something nice to say. If you don't have something nice to say, as they always say, maybe don't say anything at all. And until next time, na 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 na, hey hey hey, goodbye.
Goodbye.